All right, everybody, I think it's about 1:55, so we can go ahead and get started. Thank you again for joining everybody. Our session today on improving shipping cost and service using 3G Pacejet Shipping, which is the only multi-carrier shipping software that's fulfilled by Acumatica. My name is Luke DeLeon. I'm a senior account executive here with 3G. I've been with the Pacejet team since about 2010, so for quite a while, and I've recently joined the Acumatica team here at 3G Pacejet just about 2 years ago. Also with me today is Rain Carpenter. She is our marketing manager. She's going to be monitoring chat, so if you do have any questions, please feel free to throw them in and she'll make sure that we get them answered. With that being said, we're going to go through a few different things today as far as who is 3G Pacejet, kind of where do we fit into the Acumatica space, and then a sample overview of what a workflow might look like with Pacejet implemented into Acumatica. So here at 3G, our thought, excuse me, is that we'd really like to take shipping from an afterthought to more of a key part of your strategy and business growth. We talk to a lot of people that tend to simplify shipping in so much that they think we have great rates with one carrier, why would we ever switch? Or maybe they don't think they have enough volume to justify a shipping solution, or maybe their orders are too complex. With Pacejet, our idea is that everybody ships a little bit differently. If you're talking to 10 different Pacejet customers, you're going to find 20 different workflows. Excuse me. So with that, our goal is to give you as many different options and offer you as much visibility into your supply chain and your shipping software as possible. For example, when we talk about having great rates with one carrier, why would we ever switch? Maybe that carrier is FedEx, but your shipping software today can't determine that a certain order could be packed in a certain box that qualifies for FedEx One rate. Therefore, you can't pass that on to your customer, and you can't necessarily, provide that as an option at the time of shipping. So you could be costing yourself money by not offering all options to not only your customers, but your team. That being said, we want to give you the visibility to make the best choice that you can. Carrier rules and shipping rules are always changing. Next year, the NMFC codes will change, and LTL is going to be taking a look more at dimensional freights, just like UPS and FedEx did 10 years ago. If you're not prepared for that when that change comes in 2025, you're liable for a lot of rebills and costing yourself a lot of money on each shipment. So our goal is to just make sure that with Acumatica, you're going to be always covered for whatever's going to be changing in the carrier landscape, because we're going to be taking care of that for you. You're going to hear me talk a lot about Pacejet Shipping, but you're also going to hear me talk a lot about 3G. So a little bit of background, Pacejet, we were founded in 2003 as a on-premise pick, pack, and ship full WMS TMS system. In about 2010, when I joined the team, we moved towards the cloud and we became a shipment execution platform. So our focus at 3G Pacejet Shipping is outbound shipping execution with small package and LTL. We also do a lot around packing and rating compliance. But in 2020, we were purchased by our parent company, 3G TMS. And 3G, their focus is more on the traditional TMS functionality. So full truckload as well as LTL. They do more of the planning functionality. So if you're, shipping through multiple 3PLs, for example, 3PL locations, or if you're shipping multi-stop routes and they're full truckload, everything over the road tends to go through our 3G TMS platform. That being said, for our users that prefer integrated ERP shipping, higher volumes, and need more help on the execution side of the business, that's really where Pacejet steps in. Our integration was not only fulfilled by Acumatica, but built alongside the Acumatica team. In 2024 R1, we were announced as core, which is something that we were very excited for kind of coming into this year as well. And we continue to work with a focus on our Acumatica integration, continuously improving the options that are available to the Acumatica users. On the 3G side, we focus on multi-carrier shipping, but also the fulfillment process starting at the pack step. So we'll talk about that here in a second, but we'll also focus on all of your paperwork, labels, anything else that you might need to get out of the door. Sitting in between those two solutions is our integration hub. And the integration hub is really what we've started to develop to integrate some of the 3G TMS functionality into Pacejet and vice versa. The biggest piece that we've seen right now is our contract rates management. So while we do have about 70 different integrated carriers today, our contract rates management via TMS allows Pacejet users to load and maintain their own rate tables with hundreds of different carriers that they may use. Biggest use case for this are smaller local carriers that might not have the capabilities via an API for integration. We can still allow you to use them if that relationship is there. So when talking about how Pacejet works with Acumatica, really it is meant to work in tandem and holding hands with Acumatica along the way. Our idea is that Acumatica is always going to be your order management, your inventory management, everything on the financial side and up to the pack and ship is going to be handled through the ERP. That being said, what we'll talk about today, Pacejet can help with things such as rate shopping on a sales order or rate shopping maybe on a web store that comes down into Acumatica. But our focus is really at the point that it gets to the warehouse and you're ready to pack and ship. With Acumatica, if you're using their WMS or if you're using their scan pack option, Pacejet can read that over. So we can take the packed contents from Acumatica and send them to the carriers. Pacejet also has a scan pack option of our own, really meant for the end of the process if you wanted to combine the pack and ship step. If you wanted somebody to pick a few orders, bring them to maybe a staging area, and then someone can go in, scan a pick ticket to open an order, scan the items and build their boxes, make sure they're sending the correct items and they're not short shipping anything. And then we can transmit that information to the carriers as well. When we do process a shipment with Pacejet and Acumatica, we do not only tender the shipment, but we bring back your negotiated rates. We also bring back any additional information onto documentation. So for example, if there's a hazardous item, we can put DG information on the bill of lading. International documents, we can create and print commercial invoices, certificate of origins, USMCA documents when necessary. And we can either print them or file them electronically with your carriers. So the idea is that we are opening up Acumatica from just integrations with UPS, FedEx, and a few others to a number of different carriers across multiple modes. As far as how people have used Pacejet, we have a couple of different stories that I wanted to highlight. The first is Twang, who we actually met at Acumatica Summit last year in 2023, and they came on board in July of that year. Twang is a pretty fun company. They make a lot of different seasonings, salts that go into your popcorns, especially your beers and margaritas, for example. And as you can imagine, when you are selling beer and margarita salt, the summertime is going to be your heaviest ship months. So their busy time is typically from June to September. And prior to coming on board with Pacejet, they were having a lot of trouble as far as automation. They didn't have a dedicated shipping solution. So what they were finding is they were getting incorrect quotes up front, which means their costing and their expected revenue and profit was incorrect. They were also having to enter multiple points of information in different systems just to process one shipment. And that also led to customer service delays because they couldn't get tracking information over easily. They also could not, it took multiple calls and multiple touch points with customers to make sure they knew their order status for every order. Coming in with Pacejet, we were able to connect them to 4 different carriers. We actually went live during their busy season last year. And in that latter half of the busy season, the last month and a half or so, they were able to ship 1,500 orders, 84,000 items shipped. So those are numbers from last year. Those have obviously continued to grow throughout 2024. But really, they were able to find that automating the solution means that they don't have any manual entry mistakes. Their customers don't need to call in, and they don't need to call their customers with shipping information. It's led them to more satisfaction and higher shipping rates. Also wanted to talk a little bit about our customer Whole Latte Love. Whole Latte Love's been with us for several years now. They're a very interesting story because they actually ship up to a couple thousand shipments daily on their busiest times. And with that, they did not have a fully automated system. It was very time consuming. We worked with them on our scan pack process, which actually took any sort of computer or workstation out of the equation. So we move them to a solution where they can use a scanner to not only pack, but process the shipment. That let them reduce their throughput by 30%, increase throughput by 30%. And then that 50% reduction in time is on their most complex orders, which used to take them upwards of a day. We've significantly reduced the time it takes to create, pack, and process those shipments. With that, even though they're not using a mouse and keyboard, even though they're not necessarily looking at a computer screen while they're shipping, they've also reduced their error rate to less than 0.1%. I always like the quote they gave us when we first started working with them. I'll write it down here, but it said, how many systems are intuitive enough that the IT guy can go down onto the warehouse floor and start packing and shipping boxes, but at the same time, they're reliable enough for that same IT guy to feel comfortable leaving at 5 o'clock on Black Friday. So for us, that was a really special quote and something to say, because that is really what we're trying to do. We're trying to make shipping as easy as it's supposed to be. Anyone can do it, but it's done quickly and accurately. Okay. Also wanted to mention our newest feature, which we just announced a couple weeks ago, and it's going to be released fully in, I believe, mid-October. It's just gotten through the beta, but that is our self-service paperwork. So part of what Pacejet brings to the table is our document library. We have standard sets of packing lists, bills of lading, international documents, as I mentioned. That being said, we have a lot of customers that work with EDI vendors or EDI partners that may need specialized paperwork, whether it's a retail packing slip, whether it's a GS1 label, for example. Previously, they would have to call us and we'd have to do a customization, or we would work with a partner like Bartender, which is still an option. However, with this new module, they are actually able to create and print all of their reports, create and customize all of their reports they're liking, whether it is an EDI requirement or whether they just want different brands or different styles for different brands in-house. They'll be able to set that up and maintain their own library of documents. Nice thing here, it is a try before you buy, so you can create your own documents. You can play around with it. It's pretty easy. It is a WYSIWYG editor. So it is pretty easy to pick up and process documents, and you are able to try that before purchasing the module. That being said, we have a few minutes left, and I wanted to save some time for a couple questions as well. So kind of wanted to talk through what a workflow might look like with 3G Pacejet involved, and kind of some of the different aspects involved in the different steps. First and foremost, want to start on the sales order. We do offer the ability to rate shop across multiple carriers and multiple service levels from within the sales order in Acumatica. So you click a button called Shop for Rates. In the background, Pacejet's doing a few things. First and foremost, we're going through all of the items. We're taking a look at the item dimensions. And then we're going to take a look at the box or pallet dimensions you might use on the warehouse floor. And we're going to determine this particular order is going to fit into 4 different boxes. And here are going to be the sizes of the boxes, and here will be the weights. We're going to send that to all of the carriers that you have set up in your network. And then we are going to return rates based on a few different things. Standard practice is to return the cheapest option first. However, dependent on customer preference, carrier preference, or order needs, you can change that so we default to the fastest or the cheapest within a certain time frame. You'll be able to provide those as you're on the phone with the customer. The same logic can be taken up to a web store like a Shopify or a Magento using the Pacejet Rates API. Once the order is selected, we are going to return the rate promised to the customer into the order, as well as the carrier and service level. That gets sent over to the warehouse. So at the time of shipping, they don't need to do anything really other than verify the packaging and print the labels. From there, most of our users work off of the Pacejet Workbench. So we're going to talk a little bit about kind of the different shipping options you'll have, and one of those is shipping directly out of Acumatica. You do not need to open another page to ship, but if you want the most information and the most possibility, really most of our users tend to have their shippers work on the Workbench. Nice feature of the Workbench, if you do have a shipper that's logged in and shipping off the Workbench, they do not need to be logged into Acumatica. We're still updating Acumatica with every order. But this is really meant to be a holistic view of everything that you have left to ship today. You can sort it by location, you can sort it by customer, carrier, really any number of attributes on the order, and then process shipments directly from here. Again, it can be done with a mouse and keyboard. It can also be done with a scanner. Once you're ready to execute shipment, excuse me, you'll come typically to the rate and ship page. If a carrier's been selected, you can bypass this particular page, but otherwise you'll be able to see your packaging information. You'll be able to see the box type that you're using, dimensions and weights. We do integrate with scales, so you could put this on a scale and get the exact scale weight right over. We also could work with something like a Cubiscan to get the dimensions and weights into Pacejet. For orders such as an LTL shipment, we do have special services or accessorials. In this case, we're just looking for delivery confirmation, but maybe your customer needs or a lift gate, for example, or inside delivery. You can put that on the order in Acumatica and it will read over into Pacejet. You can also select it at the time of shipping if necessary. Last piece I would like to mention, we do address validation, not only at the time of shipping, but upon the sales order as well. So if we do see an address that is incorrect, we can stop the shipment from progressing. We can also mark it residential when necessary so that you're avoiding those $15 per box fees for missing those. Once processed, a couple different things happen at the top. First, we see this completed carrier transaction. For us, we're tendering the shipment with our carriers. So if you have a dedicated pickup, they'll be available then. Otherwise, we are reaching out to them to let them know that you do have an order ready. We're also printing all of the necessary paperwork, and Pacejet's going to recognize the type of shipment and what paperwork is going to be needed. So we're not going to print a bill of lading for a UPS ground shipment, for example. That being said, if it's an international shipment, we'll print the appropriate paperwork there. And for an EDI type shipment, we'll also print the correct documentation and format of labels. Finally, we do update everything back into Acumatica. When we do update into Acumatica, we're sending back all of the necessary shipping information, carrier and service level, in case that has changed. We can also send back the packaging information, what was in each box if you did pack in Pacejet. And most importantly, for customer service, up here in the file section, we do send back copies of all of the documentation. So if somebody does need another copy of the bill of lading, or if you wanted to take a look at a packing list again, you don't need to go into Pacejet to do that. You can do that directly from the order or the shipment, in Acumatica. Again, meant to be a very high level sample workflow. As I mentioned, there's a lot of different routes an order could take before going out the door. We're here to support really all of those. That being said, I didn't know if there were any questions, Rain, up to this point. I know we have just a couple minutes, so I figure we might be able to tackle a few.
Yeah, there were a couple that came in. Great session, Luke. First one, this is a good one. What does Acumatica Core mean exactly?
That's a great question. So I say we're pretty excited about it, and then I didn't really dive into it too much. But it means that from now on, it's built into the solution. So anytime you upgrade past 24R1 in Acumatica, Pacejet is going to be there. That integration is maintained by Acumatica. And it also means that adding 3G is no longer a customization project. So it's really just an enablement feature. So should be easier to turn on and get started. But it also means that really in our minds, there's no tighter integration within Acumatica.
Another one, we use some carriers that you don't work with. Can we continue to work with them?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I mentioned the contract rates module that you would be able to load rate tables. We also have the ability to do what we call override carriers. So for example, if you use one carrier, you're just using them for one route, they're always going to be selected for that route. You can have them selected as an override carrier, and then while there won't be any integration as far as tendering or live rating, you'd still be able to print documentation and have a marker for that shipment. Finally, we are always trying to expand our carrier network, so it is always worth a conversation. As we kind of go through our carrier roadmaps over the next several months, we try to slot folks in that, one, fill in a need that maybe we don't have elsewhere in our network, or two, are of course heavily requested by our users.
Another carrier question. We have great shipping rates with our carriers. Will we be able to keep them if we ship via Pacejet?
Absolutely, absolutely. So our goal is not to replace any carrier, and we're not going to act as a 3PL or a broker. Our focus is really just allowing you to connect Acumatica to whichever carrier you'd like to. So we're going to remain carrier agnostic. We will upgrade carriers as they upgrade their APIs. But for us, it does not matter who you want to use, and you'll keep the negotiated rates that you have in place.
An implementation question. What does implementation look like? How long?
Good question. So implementation really can matter between, excuse me, where you are in your Acumatica project. Someone that's just starting an Acumatica project is, of course, going to have a longer implementation with Pacejet because there's different data elements that are going to need to be put in place. Someone that's live with Acumatica is going to have typically the shortest. But our average implementation usually runs between 8 and 12 weeks. I would say 10 weeks is a good benchmark, and that includes all carrier activations, testing, training, and everything set up there. So.
Another one, on-prem question mark.
Yes, we are cloud-based, so we're hosted by AWS. The only thing that would be on your network would be a small piece of software that lets us talk to the printers. It's not required, but for automated printing, we put that place on, but otherwise fully hosted by AWS.
Okay, another one. We have a few freight rules with our current shipping system. Example, add $2.50 if shipping collect, add 25% if shipping internationally with FedEx. Can we do this with Pacejet?
Absolutely. So standard, the easiest rules that you'll be able to set up are, I want my FedEx ground orders to have a 25% markup, or I want my UPS orders to have a $2 markup. But then you can start diving into a rules engine that will allow you to change markups by customers, by territory, by type of item that's shipping as well. With that in mind, you can also get really into complex rules using fields in Acumatica. And as long as we can see those fields, for example, if you want a certain group of shipment to be classified one way and a certain group to be classified another, you can set that up in Acumatica where you can read that over and have different rating rules for those. Those would be automated, so your team would not have to do any work on that side. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Another one, international paperwork. Where is that?
Good question. I would have to understand what you're looking for there. As far as the international paperwork, did you want to see some examples of those? Because I could provide those. Or are you just looking to see where they live in Pacejet? I will tell you the way we set them up is during implementation, we do gather all of the harmonized tariff codes, and those live on the Pacejet side, but they are tied to the items in Acumatica. And then those documents are maintained and created by Pacejet. So this, which is a good example of our standard report set, we will always maintain those documents and update them as necessary, like we did with the USMCA a few years ago. That being said, with the new paperwork editor, you'd be able to make some own formats as you see fit as well. So, perfect. Excellent. Well, if there are any other questions, let Rain know, and we'll make sure to reach out to you. I want to make sure we don't go over our time, but I do want to leave you just with my contact information. You can scan that QR code, and I think it links directly to me. I think Rain worked her magic to set that up. But I would encourage you, if you ever have any questions, whether or not it's just how would we do this with Acumatica or is this possible, shoot me a note, give me a call, and give you a quick yes, no. And if it is worth a conversation, we can have one, or we can always kind of save that for the future as well. So that being said, I really appreciate everyone's time. Thank you for coming in today, and have a great rest of the afternoon and conference.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.